What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is week 18 of the Premier League, so let's dive right in. Starting off with the first kickoff on Saturday, Leicester hosting Palace, and Palace 2 wins in a row. Don't know what's going on, don't know what changed in the past two games, but, yeah, they played better. Watford have kind of dropped off, so that was kind of understandable, but, beating Leicester at home is no small feat. There are not a lot of teams that can go and do that, especially teams on the bottom half of the table. That's pretty difficult for most of them to do. And for a team like Palace to go there and easily win 3-0, it's just kind of like there must have been something done after the result against Watford. Like there must have been some sort of thing that just maybe Roy Hodgson said to get them going, maybe he just inspired them. But this is 2 wins on back to back, and I think both of them on the road as well. Let me check to make sure that no, never mind. Last one was at home. But it's still 2 wins though, and this one very convincing win away from home against Leicester. Something's changed at Palace, and for the first time this season, I actually believe they have a chance to stay up, and that's saying something. Because you asked me at the beginning of the season, there's no way. 8 games in, there's no way they're staying up. Even after they beat Chelsea, I'm still saying there's no way they're staying up. That was just a fluke. But clearly they've shown they have the ability to step up, and some of the teams that started off the season pretty well have really dropped off, and now that whole bottom half of the table is really, really in danger zone right now. For Leicester, though, don't know what went wrong for them. Maybe it's just all these games back to back to back to back. But yeah, they'll be definitely wondering how on earth did we get beat 3-0 by Palace. They'll be looking to change for certain. I know they've got Man City tomorrow in the AFL Cup, so who knows what's going to happen in that one, but I'm pretty sure they'll be looking for some sort of bounce back next weekend. Next up, we've got a bunch of results together. First one, Watford versus Huddersfield. Like I said, Watford really dropping off. Third game in a row getting a red card, and it's a 4-1 loss at home to Huddersfield. Yeah, things are really going bad at Watford. I don't know whether it's the players. I don't know if it's Marco Silva has just maybe he's done something to upset them, and now they're just not really buying into his system anymore, and they're getting sent off for stupid reasons. This is 3 games in a row they've gotten a red card, and they've lost. So at home against Huddersfield, that's poor. They lost to Palace, who hadn't really. They'd won a couple, but they'd been drawing a lot. They still hadn't really stepped it back up. And then before that, they lost to Burnley on the road, which isn't a bad result, but when you consider you played well and then got a red card late on, and then you give up a goal, it's just kind of like these results have not been going their way, but it's kind of their own doing. They're really just shooting themselves in the foot. So I don't really know what's going on there. But something clearly is really going wrong for Watford right now, and they've got to step it up or else. How far? I know they've dropped a lot since last I checked. 10th place, 22 points. They are decently enough away from the relegation zone for now, but considering where they were a few weeks ago, they were really up there, and it felt like, oh, we're easily safe from relegation, but now there's just like loss, and they just have not been able to step themselves up. So they're going to really hope to get some sort of momentum in the next few weeks to make sure they don't continue to drop. For Huddersfield, though, this result puts them actually 1 point behind Watford and comfortably away from that relegation battle down there for now. But yeah, after a poor showing in midweek against Chelsea at home, to go on the road and easily handle Watford 4-1, kind of promising for them. They've had some moments throughout the season that showed, hey, we've got the ability to stay up. And this is just another result of that. So next up, Chelsea-Southampton. Chelsea wins at home 1-0. Not really a great game to watch, especially as a Chelsea fan. But, it's a comfortable win for Chelsea. They dominated the game for most of it and created a lot of good chances, but couldn't really finish. I think that will be the most concerning result for us. For Southampton, though, put on a decent showing against Chelsea, and honestly have put on a decent showing against a couple of the top clubs this season. Held Man City close for most of the game and honestly should have won that game. But the weird thing about this is coming off of a 4-1 drumming at Leicester in the midweek. I think actually Leicester went to them, and yeah, Leicester went to them and just easily crushed them. So I would say this is probably a bit of a bounce back, making sure they didn't concede as many in this game, played a lot more defensive. But yeah, so they've had some ups and downs this season. I would say this is, even though it was a loss, it was one of their ups because they managed to defend really well on the day. But still concerning that they're still pretty low on the table. Got to keep going back and forth between the results in the table. But yeah, I mean 12th place, but you are 3 points away from 18th. That's not good enough. So pretty much anybody 12th and below is in danger of relegation right now. So then we get on to the next game, Brighton versus Burnley. Kind of surprising that this ended in a 0-0 draw. Not from the Burnley side of it, because Burnley have been very good defensively this season. So the fact that they managed to keep another clean sheet, not surprising. But yeah, the fact that they weren't able to score on Brighton is signs that Brighton do have a sturdy defense, and we've seen that from them some of this season. But yeah, Brighton have really struggled when it comes to these back-to-back games. So I fully expected Burnley to just be like, we've got enough depth to really handle them. And the fact that they weren't able to score kind of shows that Burnley still aren't quite there yet. They're definitely playing very well this season, but I think a lot of these games going back-to-back is starting to take its toll on them. So even though I think they won like 3 in a row or something like that, I think this draw might just sort of knock them back down to reality a little bit. They weren't able to beat Brighton on the road and say, this is definitely, we're flying high, but we're not quite at the same level as these other teams. But they won't take too much away from it because it still is a draw. It's still a point on the road. For Brighton, though, I mean, getting a point against a strong Burnley side this year is not that bad, especially, I didn't get to see the game, so I don't know if they were matching Burnley pace for pace or if it was like Burnley were just peppering them and couldn't score. I do know that I'm pretty sure Brighton had a penalty that they missed, so they'll be disappointed with that. But it's a draw for both teams. Both teams, Burnley definitely won't mind the point. Brighton will probably be hoping for more just because they are one of those teams in the relegation battle down there. So it's 50-50 on both sides. So it's kind of a difficult one to decide how exactly they're going to take that and whether they'll take good things or bad things out of it. And not getting to see the game, I won't know if they'll take good or bad things out of their performance. So next up, Arsenal versus Newcastle. Arsenal wins 1-0 pretty easily from what I saw in the highlights. But yeah, I mean, it's a game they should win. It's a game they should win comfortably. So the fact that they couldn't finish more will be a bit concerning. For Newcastle, it didn't really seem like they tested them that much. And that's one thing Newcastle has been able to do this season is test some of the top teams. They scored first against against Man City. They scored first against Chelsea. So they've been able to really test these top teams, not necessarily like in the end of the game. They still lost both of those games against Man City and Chelsea. But they were able to sort of start off strong, get an early goal, and then try to sit back a little bit. But Chelsea and Man City just had too much quality and then broke their defense. Arsenal, though, they weren't able to get a goal first. I don't know if that's really that disappointing, but not getting to see the game, it's one of those things where I'm not sure if they started off brightly like they normally do, or did Arsenal just have them from the very beginning? It seemed like from the highlights that Arsenal pretty much had them handled from the very beginning of the game. And so I think they will be disappointed that they didn't have that same sort of flair and style from the beginning that just sort of puts them ahead at the start. And on top of that, this result does knock them down into the bottom 3. So obviously they'll be hoping to get some points over the next run of games because you don't want to end this calendar year in the bottom of the table. Next up, a result that is a little bit surprising, I'd say. I was fully expecting Stoke at some point to just bounce back. And this is a game that I thought they might do it, because Mark Hughes, his job is thoroughly in danger right now. I know they said they give him till, I think they said the end of Christmas, possibly? I know they said over the next 4 games to sort of see, is there any improvement? Well, if they were to judge it right now, there's not. Losing 3-0 to West Ham at home is it's a poor result. Yes, West Ham have stepped it up over the past few games, but I mean, still, you lose 3-0 at home, it's kind of embarrassing. So, I don't know what's going on with Stoke right now. I don't have a grasp of how they could be so far down. I said at the beginning of the season that they might get relegated. Actually, if I think going back to my predictions, I think I put Stoke in the relegation zone because they lost Arnautovic. But then I think they picked up a couple players on loan after I made that prediction list, I believe. And Zuma and Vimmer were those players that they picked up, and I'm like, okay, so they have a solid defense. They should be able to do enough to make it, I think. But now it looks like what I was saying at the beginning of the season. It looks right. I mean, this is just not good enough from Stoke, and I don't know what Mark Hughes can do to change it. He's been there for a long time. It kind of feels like Tony Pulis a little bit in that I can't remember Mark Hughes not being at Stoke. It feels like it's been that long. And yet this season, for whatever reason, these long-standing managers are starting to feel the pressure of it. Like, they've been there for so long. Pulis has been comfortably keeping West Brom just safe. And now all of a sudden this season they really dropped off and Pulis is out. Mark Hughes, same thing with Stoke. He's been comfortably keeping them safe. But now things are starting to drop off, and it looks like he might be out very soon. So I don't know what to expect, but West Ham, obviously, they'll be thankful to get 3 points on the road, and especially a comfortable result like this. David Moyes will be feeling like he's starting to get the best out of his team. So very interesting to see where they're going to go from here. And then the last up was obviously the big one on Saturday, Man City versus Tottenham. A couple things to draw out of this game. One, Man City were definitely the better team. Just no doubt they comfortably had the win. Two, Ali should probably be banned for a few games for that stomp on De Bruyne. I guess the problem with it is because the ref did card him, they're going to say, well, the ref saw it and he decided to give him a yellow for it. So I don't know. I feel like the FA, though, there are a couple instances that I've seen talked about a lot about Ali stepping on players and stuff like that. So he's probably going to get banned if I had to guess. But the other thing is I'm starting to see the bias for Man City. I already knew there was a bit because I talked about, some of the calls have been going their way. They've just been getting that kind of run of luck where they've been getting some penalty calls out of nothing. It was a little soft and the referee decided to give it. But we saw one in this game that, in my opinion, it's a dive. De Bruyne jumps over the leg of, I think it was Vertonghen, sees that he's sliding in, and in my opinion, it looked like he stuck his leg back to force the contact and then went over. Even that contact wasn't enough for him to go over. It looked like an obvious dive. I have not heard one thing about it on media. The announcers, both of them were just like, oh yeah, Vertonghen going in a little clumsily there. And I'm just like, I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, how can you not see he stuck his leg back and then went over way too easily? He's trying to get Vertonghen sent off because he's the last defender. He's trying to get him a red card because at that point, they were 2-0, 3-0 down. So, Vertonghen's not getting up and complaining about it because he knows that De Bruyne went over easily. He knows that he can't change the ref's mind, so he's just like, whatever. He just gets up and walks away frustrated. But yeah, I'm shocked that nobody's even looked at that. And what makes it even funnier is that listening to NBCSN, Robbie Mustoe talking about the Burnley game, he's like, I've looked over, whoever it was, Murray going over, he's like, I looked over it for a few minutes and I just don't know if the FA is going to look at it and say that there's enough there. He may have stuck his leg back, but I don't know if there's enough there to ban him. De Bruyne's penalty? Nothing. No talk about it at all. All I've heard about De Bruyne is how great a player he is. And I'm just like, that's the problem. Whenever you get a player like this, it's like he's untouchable. And especially a team like Man City with Pep Guardiola. They feel a bit untouchable by the FA and the referees this season. And that's a problem. Because no team should be untouchable. No team should be above that. But this season it feels like they are. So, I don't know. I'm really kind of shocked about the fact that nobody's even bothered to look at that and say, hey, is that... I'm not saying that it necessarily will be. The FA could look at that and say, you know what, no, there's enough contact for us for him to go down. And that would be fine. But it's the fact that nobody's even looking at it that's the problem. If they looked at it and said something about it, I'd be okay. But it's the fact that they're not even looking at it at all. And in fact, going even further on this, I've seen a couple articles for people asking for Alonso to be banned because he got a fifth yellow against Southampton for taking too long on the corner kick, which means he's out of the Bournemouth game in the Carabao Cup, but he's going to be back for the Premier League next weekend. And people are like, oh, that's a deliberate yellow card. He's doing that on purpose. He should be banned for that. And I'm like, wait, you're calling for him to be banned for that, but nobody's even mentioning the De Bruyne dive for the penalty? Really? So it's kind of one of those things where we've seen a couple players already this season banned for diving, for simulation, and it just felt like, okay, well, maybe players will stop. But then some of these top players that are untouchable, Sterling does it all the time. He dives a lot. De Bruyne dives in this one and gets a penalty that they ultimately miss, and nobody's talking about it. It's just like, well, they're going to keep diving because nobody's even going to mention it. Nobody's going to bring it up. So, yeah, I just have a little bit of a problem with that. Obviously, as a Chelsea fan, everybody's going to claim that I'm biased, but I don't know. I mean, even if, if Hazard went down way too easily in the box, if nobody even mentioned that, I'd be like, well, I'm not going to say that somebody should look at it, but I would be shocked if nobody looked at that and said, hey, someone needs to look at that, because we don't want this to become a joke rule. We don't want this to become something where it's just like, oh, yeah, we say we're going to look at the simulation and stop it, but we all know we're not going to. So, I don't know, just my 2 cents on that. But then we get into the final 3 results, 2 yesterday and then 1 today. First of all, West Brom versus Man U. Typical result, Man U step up against a team like West Brom, who have been struggling this season. Lukaku steps up and scores against a small team. Typical Lukaku. And yeah, just comfortably handled them, but then second half sort of dropped off and let West Brom back into the game. And that's been Man U this season. They get the job done enough, but then whenever the smaller team comes roaring back in the second half, especially at home, they just don't seem to have an answer for that. They give up a goal, and then things seem a little bit more uncomfortable in the last 10 minutes. So, I don't know. It's kind of been a strange season for Man U overall. They've had some good results, and they've had some really bad ones. And this was one that obviously isn't good or bad. It's just sort of like, they got the win, but was it really a good win for them? And then we got Liverpool easily handling Bournemouth on the road, 4-0. Bournemouth really struggling this season. It's been a poor season for them. They haven't had enough on the attack. Losing King in the first half to injury was not good for them either. But yeah, once they let that first goal in so early, it was just kind of like, well, you got to try to fight back, and Liverpool just wants you to do that. They want you to try to come back and hit them, and then they're just going to hit you on the counterattack every time, and it's going to be easy for them. So, yeah, I feel bad for Bournemouth because they did put up a bit of a fight, but ultimately it's just, it's not enough, and I have to wonder if they're going to have enough to stay up this season, because they haven't shown it so far. They haven't shown that they've got the striking capability or the defensive capability. Not that they have a poor team, it's just it hasn't really been clicking for them this season. They've got a couple good players that I thought were going to help them, but it just hasn't really worked as a team overall. They've had a couple really good defensive showings, but they didn't have the strike force to really finish the game. So, and then last up the game today, Everton-Swansea. Everton winning easily 3-1 at home. I mean, that's a good result for Everton, and they've been on the up. Sam Allardyce has come in and once again somehow worked his magic. I honestly would like Sam Allardyce to just sort of go away so he's not seen as like this, oh, we're losing our season, let's go get Sam Allardyce. Because it just feels kind of like a cheap way out, especially for the players. It's just like, oh, guys, we don't like this manager. Let's get Sam Allardyce in. He knows how to keep us in the Premier League. It's like, I don't know. It feels way too easily. It feels like a cheat code almost to just bring him in. So I honestly, not that I want Everton to go down, but I want one of these teams to pick up Sam Allardyce and then still get relegated. So everybody will stop this whole like we need to get Sam Allardyce to save our team type of thing going on. But yeah, Swansea obviously have been really struggling. So this is a result that doesn't help their case. In fact, might as well go ahead and bring up the table real fast just to sort of see where everybody is. But yeah, right now, Swansea, bottom of the table, 2 points back from 19th place. It's going to be a struggle for them to get up because, all these teams are going to be looking to pick up points, and a lot of them are going to be facing each other as well over this Christmas season. And I just don't see them having enough to get off the bottom of the table by Christmas. The main problem that they have right now is that they don't really have the defense that they need. And that's been a problem for Swansea in the past, but they managed to sort of find a way to do it. They managed to have enough up top to get the job done. But so far this season, Abraham's done okay, Boney's done okay coming in, but they haven't been doing enough. It's just been not enough, just barely. So I do have to wonder, are they going to be looking for defenders in the January transfer window, or are they just going to keep dropping? For West Brom, who are just above them, it's been a frustrating year for them. I expect them to probably go get a couple players in January just because they need it as well. They're an aging side that didn't really do much to get better. On top of that, they may have lost Barry for a few games because a lot of people are pointing out the stamping incident on De Gea late in the game. Newcastle right above them with 1 point. They've got a decent team, they've got a decent manager, but they just don't have enough for the Premier League right now. So I'm wondering if they're going to be looking to get probably a striker up top or a playmaker in behind because they just don't really have that attacking capability that they need. Stoke, obviously on the drop right now, definitely need to find a solution, whether it's getting rid of Mark Hughes or trying to get some good players in the January transfer window. Not sure, but I think Mark Hughes has until their deadline to change their minds. And unless they pick up, they're probably going to have to win the next 3 games. And even if they don't look good doing it, it's just kind of like he's definitely got to be gone. And then Bournemouth, they're on the drop as well. They haven't really had enough up top. West Ham, Crystal Palace have looked on the up. Brighton has been sort of up and down, hit and miss. Southampton, same thing. So all of these teams are like, Southampton has 18 points in 12th. Swansea has 12 points in 20th. That's 6 points difference. None of these teams are comfortable right now. And so I'm kind of curious to see what these teams are going to do in January. Are they going to go on a spending spree? Are they just going to hope that maybe they can switch things around, change tactics, change managers possibly? I don't know. Of the teams down there, though, I would say the two or three teams that definitely need to go spend in January are Swansea, for sure, go get some defenders. West Brom, go get just some younger players with some more energy. And Stoke, you got to find a player to replace Arnautovic because you don't have that attacking flair anymore. It's gone. Shaqiri can't do it on his own. He's too small to physically make it in the Premier League. So if he's going to have to play, he's going to need somebody to play off of. And they just don't have that up there right now. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes. But we're getting close to that halfway point. In fact, one more game to the halfway point. So, looking forward to seeing how it's all going to sort of wrap up this calendar year. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to it. I know I am. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game or this weekend? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Premier League week's reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.